Today I'm doing some R&D and I'm making 4 brioches with 4 different fats. I start by mixing my dough, water, milk, yeast, mix it all together, eggs, flour, a little more flour, and a little more flour. Finally sugar. Let it all go for about 10 minutes. You can literally start a mixer and walk away, and the dough will continue mixing. Once it's mixed enough to where it's pulling off the sides of the bowl, I'm adding my salt, and I will let that go for 2 or 3 more minutes longer. My dough is pulling off the sides of the bowl, and the bowl is nice and clean, so this is ready for the fat. Normally that's where I would add the butter, but I'm testing 4 different things today, so I'm separating my dough into 4 pieces, and I'm making the first one with cream cheese. So 1/4 of the original dough, a little bit of cream cheese, and I'm going to let that go for about 5-7 minutes until it all comes together. You can see the cream cheese is getting incorporated nicely and there's no more chunks visible, so that's ready to go. I'm placing it in the bowl, plastic on top, and I will let that sit for a couple hours. To my next dough, I'm adding some mascarpone, and normally brioche is made with butter, but I'm trying to see if I can replace butter with any other fats and whether or not that will affect the texture, the taste, how the dough proofs. So we'll see how it all turns out. In the bowl, plastic on top, 2 more hours. Dough number 3 gets peanut butter, so that gets mixed as usual, and once all the peanut butter is clean off the bowl, that's ready to go. In the bowl, plastic on top. Starting to run out of bowls. And my dough number 4, this one is interesting. I'm making a ganache out of equal parts of milk and dark chocolate. Once it's nice and emulsified, I'm adding it to my dough, and that will mix the same as the previous ones until it all comes together. What I'm trying to accomplish here is create a more chocolate flavor rather than cocoa powder. Bowl, plastic, 2 hours. So we can see all of our doughs proofed nicely and they're all about the same size, which means that the fats did not affect the proofing process. Now I'm taking about the same size pieces of each dough so that I can bake them off and see what they look like, what they taste like, how they bake, and what their texture looks like. I'm labeling every single one of them on the parchment paper so that I don't forget which one is which. So that one's peanut butter, and the chocolate, the last one that's coming up. Roll it nicely on the parchment paper, cover it with plastic, let it sit for a couple hours, and once they've doubled in size, I'm brushing them with egg wash and putting them in the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. The peanut butter and chocolate look a little smaller than the other 2, but that's only because they didn't spread as much. They kind of stayed nice and tall, and you can't really see that with an overhead shot. This is what they look like when they come out of the oven. Let's see what they look like on the inside. This is the one with cream cheese. It's nice and soft, very fluffy, looks great. It tastes very similar to butter brioche, and overall I really like this one. Next up, I'm going to try my mascarpone brioche. This one looks great, has a great texture, and the flavor is a little bit more tangy than the butter brioche, but I still like it quite a bit. Next up, let's see what our peanut butter brioche looks like. The texture on this one is great, and the flavor is actually quite unique. It's really nice and nutty, but it's not overly peanut buttery. It's just a hint of peanut butter. It's absolutely perfect. And the last but not least is the chocolate brioche. This came out really good. I like how chocolatey it is, and the flavor was much better than adding cocoa powder to the dough. Now that I know what these recipes look like, I'll be working on fillings to incorporate into these doughs. And if there's something you'd like to try or you think would be good with, let me know. I'd love to hear from you.